Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Welcome into another edition of the JMU Sports News Podcast. I'm Bennett Conlon, joined by Jack Fitzpatrick. Jack, we've got a lot to get to. We've got a Heisman Trophy candidate at quarterback. We've got a college football playoff team we're following, essentially. JMU's 4-0, and they're looking pretty good after that bye week.
133 points. And I know that's been said ad nauseum wherever you've been listening to your JMU sports content. 133 points over the last 2 weeks. They had scored 13 against Gardner-Webb. What?
Crazy. It doesn't make sense.
I don't understand it, man. I thought no way that they're going to back up a 70-point performance with another essentially 70-point performance. They could have scored 70 in this game. Goodness gracious. 63 points. Alonzo Barnett looks every part of what we were promised a year ago, what we were promised to start this season. We'll get into some Barnett Heisman talk, kind of tongue-in-cheek, a little jokingly, but Barnett has been balling. Joby Mallory, we saw flashes of him. George Pettaway has stepped up in a big way in the absence of an injured Io Adei. Just so many things. So many things we have to get into in today's episode. Ball State beat down, conference play beginning. Bennett, are you excited?
I am excited. I'm excited for the rest of the season. I think it's a team that's playing well in all three phases. They're in the group of 5 playoff hunt, which is cool and something that I was hopeful could happen, but maybe didn't expect in year one for Chesney.
Something you can expect each and every week is the fact that BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share at $200,000. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino, get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of our over 150 slots games. Head to BetOnline today to get in on the action. BetOnline, the game starts here. Thank you. There's no clean segue for this one, but if you enjoy the content, if you enjoy the podcast, jmusportsnews.com, everything like that, we would really appreciate it if you bought us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/JMU Sports News. $5 little coffee. In the case of Bennett, a little tea. Maybe we'll split it on some beer, things of that sort, but we would greatly appreciate that.
Absolutely. If you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe. We like the dopamine hit of subscribers. At least I do.
Yeah. Dopamine hit of subscribers is always a good one. All right.
Where do you want to start here?
I do want to talk defense because what Lyle Hemphill is doing is masterful, but I think we have to the A1 above the fold headline. You like I'm bringing in newspaper stuff, the assistant sports editor of Baltimore. Yeah, you're welcome. The above the fold big time headline is just what the offense has been doing. So they finished the game with, they didn't punt. They had so many yards, 506 yards of total offense. This is coming off of a 600-yard performance the week before where they put up 70 against UNC. So 1,100 yards of total offense over the last 8 quarters of football played. Alonzo Barnett, he continues his Heisman campaign, 20 of 28, 280, 5 tutties, and then to tack on 44 yards of rushing with another touchdown. He backed up his 7-touchdown performance last Saturday with a 6-touchdown performance on this Saturday with 13 over the last 8 quarters. That is an insane clip. I mean, just that offense is firing on all cylinders. What were some of your biggest takeaways from that offensive performance?
I mean, they kind of embarrassed them, right? They did whatever they wanted to do. They were 9 of 10 on 3rd down. The one time they didn't get it, they were like, all right, cool, let's just go for it on 4th, and they converted that. So essentially they never got them off the field, which is what you were saying with the no punts. They couldn't stop him on third down. They didn't stop him on the 1/4 down. Ball State's defense is bad. Like that's not new information. Missouri State had 34 on them. Central Michigan had 37. Miami had 62. But still, it's an FBS team. They played well against them. Barnett was really good. The running game was so good that they essentially said, we're going to rest George Pettaway. He was phenomenal, had 4 carries for 35 yards and a touchdown. And they're like, you know what? We don't even really need to give you the ball. So then they used Wayne Knight and Joby Mallory late in the game. I'm a big Mallory stan. You're a big Mallory stan. He looked the part. But like everybody was good. Taylor Thomas was good. Dawson was good. Dawson was so good that Chesney in the post game, or it was either post game or like his Monday press conference, was like, yeah, Dawson didn't get in the end zone, but he did some really good things. Dawson did get in the end zone. He had a touchdown catch. So he forgot about one of the touchdowns because so many receivers for them had touchdowns. They just played really, really well. The whole game on offense and defense was good too.
It is worth noting, Dollison has continued his streak of every
Mhm.
single touch he's ever had as a JMU Duke has gone for a first down or a touchdown. An unbelievable streak dating back to last season. Congratulations, Dollison. That deserves a good round of applause here. I mean, that's
It was
impressive.
close too. First catch got good spot, but he got to the first down like on the line.
Yeah, unfortunately, Dylan Williams's streak of every
Streaks
catch
over.
being
Yeah.
that one ended I think with his first catch of the game. I want to just say some. I know people make fun of me for my nerd stats, my advanced stats, my EPA stuff. I lean into the bit now because I got some more advanced stats for you. This is from our friends over at Game on Paper. They do a great
Mhm.
job of just breaking down each and every game. So both teams had a total of 10 drives. JMU averaged 62.2 yards per drive. Ball State
That'll
averaged
do.
33. Available yards percentage. So, how many of the available
Mhm.
yards did you get? Ball State only got 44% of the available yards to them all game. JMU somehow had 101% of the available yards. They beat Ball State so bad they got yards that weren't even on the field.
Would that be like a false start and then you get those 5 yards?
Yeah.
Is that kind of
Yeah.
okay? That's very
Just
hilarious though.
they
Like
got
that's the no punt thing, right? They did literally offensively everything you could possibly do. They did.
So Ball State ran 84 total plays, JMU just 65. Ball State's offense never found a rhythm. They had a negative 13.51 EPA on offense that was negative 15.5. JMU's offensive EPA was 31.14. So their offense was expected to add 31 points at the end of the game. And well, they added 63.
Unbelievable.
And that is without JMU. We talked a little bit about the middle eight, I think, at the Charlotte game, where Chesney puts a big
Yes.
emphasis on the last
Yeah.
4 minutes of the first half and the first 4 minutes of the second half. That is when a game can truly swing, especially if you can go down and score before the end of the first half and then you receive the second half kickoff, because then
Mhm.
you can just essentially twist the knife on a team and completely kill them. JMU didn't have a good middle eight in this game. Outside of DJ Barksdale's interception, Ball State kind of was moving on it in the last 4 minutes of the first half, and their EPAs in that their EPA in that middle eight offensively was negative 0.05. So they had a negative EPA in the middle eight. Granted, the defense did a great job and held Ball State to a negative zero point 0.5 EPA per play, mainly in large part to that unreal DJ Barksdale interception.
That that's sort of one of the things that stands out. They seem like they're a lot, not, I can't say that. They're very well coached. I'm
What
not
were
going
you
to
going
say
to
they're
say?
better coached
Okay.
than last year because I thought they were really well coached. I think they are better coached in the secondary because there are guys who last year with the ball in the air looked like frightened that are now making unbelievable interceptions. Like Barksdale had a couple plays last year as a freshman where the ball was in the air and he played it in a way that was like mind-bogglingly frustrating. And you're like, wow, this guy has so much athleticism, but it's like maybe they haven't quite figured it out in the air. This one, he tips an interception to himself and is diving and making plays. He had the hardest hit of the game. He won the Hammer Award, which is the only award that I fully understand of the Bob Chesney Weekly Awards, which is just hardest hit. So he's really good at like everything, right? He's growing as a sophomore and playing well and has a ton of confidence. Terrence Spence has unbelievable ball skills. Like it just seems like the Holy Cross staff and then Lyle Hemphill, they're very good at teaching guys in the defensive backfield how to make plays on the ball, which is very impressive. It sounds like the Eric O'Neill pick six was like calculated in practice, and Hemphill had that play designed for an O'Neill interception where he would fake in, they blitz Dobbs off the edge, he drops back, they throw to that spot, and he's going to make a play on the ball, whether it's a tip pass or an interception. He had an incredible play on it for a defensive end to snag it and then go in and score. Just so impressive overall. I've been really impressed with the coaching staff to be able to get the most out of different players, to find ways to put them in the right spot to succeed. It just seems like they aren't doing things like wrong. Like where last year, I do think the secondary was in a tough spot schematically, but then they also did stuff that I think maybe they weren't executing the way they could have. Where this year, it feels like almost every defensive back has just been a monster.
It's been insane, and I I'm trying to do something. We're recording on Zoom for today because spotty Wi-Fi on both of our ends made StreamYard a little difficult to wrangle in.
Brutal
I
day.
I do want to talk about that interception from Eric O'Neill because it may have been one of the best defensive plays I've seen JMU run in quite some time. Not just the fact that Eric O'Neill had the wherewithal to go up and make that pick six, but the the play design itself was unreal. That play design, I talked a little bit about it on To the House, but it's worth kind of talking about, and with the video, I want to try and show if I can through Zoom like what is being done because the just pure fake out from Lyle Hemphill on this
Really
play
smart.
is fantastic. So, Bennett, can you see my screen? I feel
Yeah, I
like I
got your
am.
screen.
So, if you're watching on YouTube, one, like and subscribe. All of our podcasts to the house and Jamie Sports News posted full on YouTube.
Hell yeah.
But you see, is my cursor on the screen too?
Yeah, I can
So
see that.
you see one, two, three, four, five guys on the line of scrimmage. Trent
Hmm.
Hendrick, one of the linebackers, has floated up into the A gap to fill it. And so this right here is showing blitz. Simone said this redshirt freshman, he sees that and he immediately thinks blitz, right? He's expecting them to bring the heat with a guy coming through the A gap over the center. Then the play starts. The second the play starts, Hendrick drops out. Let me see if I can back this up a little bit. The second the play starts, Hendrick backs out of the A gap. Jacob Dobbs comes flying in, and right there, Simonza, I assume as this quarterback, he sees okay, Trent Hendrick's bailing, but they're still bringing five. They're still bringing
Hmm.
this linebacker who's now unaccounted for because I didn't check to him in the pre-snap. I have to go to my hot route immediately. And so that's exactly what he does. His hot route's down here in the near side of the field, on the wide side of the field. And he doesn't expect Eric O'Neill to come off of his rush and fill that void, fill that zone. Trent Hendrick starts floating over as well. And they're filling that hot route void. And Simonsa throws it, looking for seven on the hot. And boom, Eric O'Neill's right there to make that catch and make that interception. No one in front of him, pick six.
Just an awesome, awesome play design, right? Because yeah, he thinks it's going to be five, and it ends up being four. But his focus, like you're saying, is entirely on Hendrick versus Dobbs. So he's looking at the two linebackers. JMU doesn't drop defensive ends all the time; they do it occasionally. But he's looking at the two linebackers, focus on the two linebackers, goes to his spot, and then they've got O'Neill just completely unexpected right there. And then you can see Spence, I think it was, breaking pretty hard too on the
Yeah.
slant. So if like O'Neill somehow misses, I think Spence probably blows that up, or at least a pretty hard hit, tackled immediately, maybe breaks it up. Who knows? But it's a really phenomenal design to get a redshirt freshman who's played very well this year for Ball State. It's going to be pretty good in the MAC to get him focused on the two linebackers and then throw it to a defensive end. So I thought that was cool. And O'Neill was saying, like, yeah, we did so much of this on Thursday in practice. We're like, they knew they're luring Ball State into certain looks, which just tells me you've got a coaching staff that I think is kind of, you know, they're not really G5 coaches. Like, and they probably won't be for long. And Hemphill specifically has spent what the last like 5 years at ACC schools, like defensive coordinator, co DC at Wake Forest and Duke. So for him, I think schooling Ball State's offensive coaches is something that he's certainly capable of.
And there were so many other blitzes and just looks throughout the game, sim pressures where you show you're doing something and then you end up not sending any pressure, but because you showed it pre-snap, the quarterback's expecting it. There were the delayed blitzes from the second level. There'd be plays where Jacob Thomas would come screaming in from his safety spot on a delayed blitz while pulling out the defensive end on that same side, but it would just like
Mhm.
overwork the offensive line. They'd get a free blitzer. Just an exceptional game plan from Lyle Hempel. And this is no shade at Bryant Haynes and the old defensive coordinators of JMU. It's because they just had the better talent for so many years, it felt like
Yeah.
a dominant front four a year ago when they were in the FCS, they just always had like better players so they could essentially line up and run the defense they wanted to run. Now they still have very good athletes, which is why they're able to do these exotic pressures and the exotic looks. But it's just so much fun when you have elite level athletes and fun coaching, and it culminates in Eric O'Neill, an LIU transfer, to have a pick six off of a sim blitz delayed pressure from the linebacking spot.
It's fun, man. It's a good coaching staff going to a good coaching staff. What was it, 2022? I think they dropped Jalen Green in coverage against Coastal, and he had that pick, which was a lot of fun. And then he stepped out of bounds right away, and his teammates gave him a bunch of flack for it. But like these coaches are all so good. JMU fans have kind of been spoiled. Indiana's ranked in the top 25 with that group. They're 5-0 and looking like a legit 10-win contender in the Big Ten that maybe could even flirt with like a conference title. We'll see. There's been a lot of talent that's come through the program, and I'm not so sure this team isn't as good, if not better, than last year's, which feels crazy to say, but
Are they better than you brought it up? Let's ask the question. Is this team right now better than last year's team?
I don't want to do the Ben DiNucci 2018 thing that we did, where we're like, this is the greatest team that Jamie's ever seen, and then they like went 9-4 or whatever, where we got way ahead of ourselves after a hot start. So I want to, I'm not going to say that for like for sure until we see a little bit more. But I do think some fans are kind of like the 2023 team is really good. We're kind of overhyping what they did at times.
Okay.
Good team, good team, but like probably should have lost the UVA game to a 3-win UVA, and like I think would have lost if there wasn't a rain delay, to be honest with you. Like that was trending very poorly. So then they play Troy and they kind of didn't do anything on offense. Maybe a little turtling going on. I don't know. They win that game 16-14 because the defense held on. Utah State was a mind-boggling collapse that they then sort of found a way to get another touchdown and avoid that loss. South Alabama was a game that was out of reach, and they let South Alabama make a run back in. And then they started to click, and then they started to play really good football. But it wasn't without like the occasional blip, like 30-27 at home against ODU was a little concerning. Like they just couldn't adjust to the fact that their receivers were wide. Like the receivers were really wide, and they just didn't have any plan to stop it, which was kind of weird because they always are really wide. And then biggest game of the year, kind of laid an egg against App State. Like that's one they rallied late. Elijah Surratt was incredible, but like McLeod, that was probably his worst game of the year. Missed a lot of open throws. The offensive line wasn't good. Last year, like if you remember, they straight up didn't have a running game, which isn't great, and I think hurt them a lot against App, which we've seen App last year. That was a concern. This year, it's a concern. Like they straight up can't stop the run, but Jamie couldn't run, so they couldn't exploit that mismatch. But it's a great team. I'm not trying to take anything away from that team. I just think sometimes people are like, man, it's impossible to match that. And it's like, no, it's not. Like, I think they brought in a ton of really good players and good coaches. And the way they've played this year with a 20-point win over North Carolina, especially the last 2 weeks, right? I think there's the potential there because they're clearly deeper than last year. The secondary is clearly better at, like, I don't know, catching footballs. There's a lot to like about this team. The offensive line's more productive. There's a running game. Alonzo Barnett, I'm willing to say it, can make throws that I don't think Jordan McLeod can make.
I understand why Alonzo Barnett won the quarterback competition last year coming out of camp.
Like I think they might might be better. And like losing Surratt, Reggie Brown is tough. Phoenix Sproles. I don't know that they have that like big kind of possession guy because Taji Hudson hasn't done a whole lot yet that can make up for Surratt. But I'm not convinced that like Cam Ross and Ymir Knight isn't a more dangerous duo. And then you throw in Dollison on the deep balls. That
Well,
trio to me isn't worse than last year's.
and then Taylor Thompson, who's coming off of a career day, he could be that possession receiver who did play some wide receiver at the tail end of last year, knows how to kind of split out wide if you need him not to be just hanging out around, over the tackle. I think Taylor Thompson could easily become that possession guy, or it could be Taji Hudson as he continues to work back from this injury. But you said it, there's a lot to like about this team. There's a lot of potential. I will say you can point to those blips on the radar a year ago where they survived these near losses. You can point to them as a negative. You can also point to them as a positive
Sure.
where they were able to come together, battle through, win the games. There are going to be blips on the radar for this team. They are going to lay eggs. They're going to have bad quarters, bad halves, potentially bad entire 4 quarters. You saw it against Gardner-Webb.
Hmm.
They weathered that storm. There's going to be 1 or 2 more. You got 2 huge games left on this schedule, 3 huge games left on this schedule at Georgia Southern, at App State, and at ODU. You can say what you want about ODU. I've been an ODU apologist. I get it, but they're going to be a thorn in your side. They may not win that
They're a
game, but
solid team.
they're a solid team. You're gonna One of those 3 games you're gonna have to battle through. And how does this team rally together and how does it battle through all of those big games they have remaining are on the road too, which is going to be tough.
Coastal game brings some challenges too. Coastal lost to
No,
UVA, but they're not a bad team. They're a solid team. I think they're I think they're a better team. They'll play. I think they play ODU this weekend. We'll see how that one goes. Our two boys against each other.
yeah.
But I think I don't know. It's they still have a lot of football to play. I'm not saying definitively they're better, but I thought coming into the year I was like, oh, they're deeper, but they don't have the same. Maybe they don't have the same talent level, or I was kind of wishy-washy on some of that. And then I started to look at it through camp, and I was like, wait, they might be better. And then the first 2 weeks, I was like, oh, they lied to us. They lied to us. I don't think the coaches lied to us. I just think they had a couple like sluggish weeks trying to gel, and now they have. I don't know. Like I think they're really good. Last year's team is really good, but I think this year's team is also very, very good.
Hey Bennett, it's okay. We're in the podcast business. We have to have opinions every single week, and that's what the opinions they were giving to us were, and that's what happened. I will say I'm not ready either to say that this team is better. However, I will say this team is on the trajectory to do things we've never seen JMU football do.
Yeah. I do think there's something to be said for I'm not saying that they're like Chesney and company are better than Signetti's staff. I think they are different in ways that could be valuable, including like keeping the foot on the pedal. Where I think Signetti has done that a little more at Indiana because he's trying to prove a lot more. Where at JMU there was a thing of like, hey, let's finish, like just let's win the game, make sure we hold on to it. And I think there's a bigger trust in Barnett. Like we can just keep throwing it. Where I do think there was concerns early in the season of like we've seen McLeod in practice. He kind of makes the occasional like what the hell was that throw? And they were a little concerned that those could pop up in games and they would turtle partially because of that. Because then I think later in the year there were a few games where they did not turtle as much and they trusted McLeod a little more.
1,000%. And it is also worth noting against group of 5 and FCS teams, they've allowed 2 touchdowns this season,
Right?
right? One against Charlotte, none against Gardner-Webb, and now one against Ball State. Then, of course, you have the 50-point outing as like your outlier against an ACC school, but you still win the game by 20. So take all of that with a grain of salt. So could be a very good defense that just allows yards that don't really matter. Like, you know how you can eat empty calories? I think
Yeah,
this team allows empty yards a lot.
they do, man. I don't know. There's a lot to like. They got ULM. We'll see how that goes, but I like a lot so far.
All right, let's zoom out a little bit. Look at a big picture here because conference play for JMU is starting. We'll preview ULM, that ULM game in just a little bit, but zooming out, looking at how the conference stands. We haven't done Sunbelt Weekly Pick'em, so this is kind of our way of doing a quick update on the Sunbelt. As it stands now, JMU is the only undefeated Sunbelt team remaining. Georgia Southern sits atop the East technically because they are 1-0 in conference play. but they're 3-2 on the season. App State and Georgia State both have played conference games, both lost their conference games. Both App and Georgia State 2-2. ODU 1-3 with the worst record in the East. Troy, shockingly, 0-1 in conference play, 1-4 in
They stink.
overall.
They're not good.
They're not good. But coming into this year, we kind of had JMU circled and App State circled as, the potential teams to make it to the college football playoff out of the Sun Belt. Well, Coastal's out. Coastal has 2 losses. There's really no, sorry,
Just one.
App State is out. I meant to say
Gotcha, yeah.
App State was the circle team.
I hear you. You
I'm
did say
already
they were the circle team.
that App State 2 losses. They're out of the discussion.
Yeah, they're done.
Now
They're
it's
done.
Coastal and JMU is kind of the 2 teams that realistic, maybe Louisiana, maybe the Raging Cajuns that have a realistic shot to make it as the college football playoff G5 representative. Texas State 2-2. They're out of the discussion already as well.
I think Coastal's dead too. 19-point loss to UVA. I don't think you can get in.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. But just from a pure win-loss standpoint,
maybe they could linger for a while. I think it's Louisiana and JMU are the only 2 hopes, and I think JMU is way more realistic. I think JMU, to be honest, is like the only hope to make the playoff out of the Sun Belt.
I don't disagree with that. I think, yeah. And
which is fascinating this early because I thought App State was going to hang around a lot longer. I thought Texas State was going to hang around all season, and they could have lingered, but they blew. I don't know if you saw this. They blew a 22-0 lead against Sam Houston last weekend to lose by a point.
Is that who they lost to?
Yeah, they're up 22-0, and they end up losing like 40-39.
What happened to that team? Because then they 21 skunked Arizona State. They went down 7-0. Then they hung 21 up on Arizona State quickly and then blew that game. Is the defense that bad?
Defense is really bad. Best defensive player, Ben Bell, has also decided to redshirt. I imagine he will be at a Power 5, Power 4 team next year. So it's kind of a mess there. But the Dukes are hanging around. Texas State's still good. Like if you get them in the Sun Belt Championship or even Louisiana, which just be Wake Forest, it'll be tough. But JMU's in a good spot. I think Georgia Southern's respectable. We don't know a lot about Marshall yet. Coastal's not bad. App could turn it around. They've proven the ability to do that. So the East still has tough teams, like in theory, but the metrics are really bad because of some of these non-conference results. Like the strength of schedule is going to be a big issue for JMU if we're talking like long-term playoff picture.
Yeah. And now the issue might just be that the Sun Belt's going to cannibalize itself, that its best team to make it to the college football playoff is going to have to go through a gauntlet because they decided to schedule them an absolute murderer's row to finish the season.
Yeah, we'll see. Because like the Mountain West has like legit strength of schedule. Like, hey, that's not bad. UNLV's got 2 P4 wins, and they just demolished Fresno State without Sluka. Backup quarterback from Campbell looked a lot better than Sluka did. So I think maybe they're pretty stoked about that move. And Boise State lost to Oregon by 3. They just beat up on Washington State. Ashton Genty is disgusting. I mean, just disgusting. Did you watch his highlights from that game?
No, I'm scared to.
Like 5 guys have him like multiple times throughout the game. It's like 4 guys are making contact with him, 4 defenders within like 4 or 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, and that play ends with a 60-yard touchdown. And it's like you are just currently an NFL running back in a group of 5 jersey.
I'm looking at his yards after contact this season.
It'll be a lot. I will look up his box score for that game because I know some fans. We'll talk about this in a second, like the Alonzo Barnett Heisman talk. Put on if you want to see a group of 5 guy who's like legitimately right now in the Heisman race, put on some Boise State film. 26 carries, 259 yards, 4 touchdowns in that game.
Ashton Genty, he is averaging 10.3 yards per attempt.
Yes.
13 touchdowns, no fumbles. He's averaging 7.16 yards after contact per attempt.
How many yards? Does it say how many yards in the season he has after contact?
587. The next closest in the group of 5 is Mekhi Hughes at 369. The next closest in the nation is Omarion Hampton at 519.
Okay, what did you say? 587.
Yeah.
The Rutgers has a running back who has 589 rushing yards this season. He's fifth nationally in rushing yards. So if you took Genty's like stats out, he'd be fifth nationally only if you included yards after contact. He currently leads the country with 845 rushing yards.
Wow. And that's with a game where he was sat after like 2 quarters and 129 yards.
It's pretty unbelievable what he's been doing. They also, similar to JMU, had that week 3 bye. So he's played 4 games. So he has 4 games and 845 rushing yards. So he's averaging over 200 rushing yards per game. And what is that? It's about 3 touchdowns a game.
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane. And they played Oregon. Like against Oregon, he had almost 200 yards and averaged 7.7 yards a carry. The man's unbelievable. So when we talk about Barnett Heisman, I think he's still a long way from like actually being considered. I was checking out FanDuel yesterday. He does not have odds yet. Oddly, though, Jordan McLeod does.
The way you said that, there's just a pure question in your voice. Oddly, huh?
Well, they've already got 2 losses, and I think Barnett's stats are favorable in some categories. I'm not sure how Jordan McLeod could possibly win the Heisman Trophy with a 2-loss Texas State team, but
So that brings us well into Barnett Heisman. It's a fun thought experiment where if they win out and he continues, having 5 total touchdown performances, he could find himself just lingering around the conversation. Say Boise State somehow drops a game or two, then all of a sudden
yeah,
they're kind of out of it. Then Barnett's in it. I do want to say that he has some pretty insane stats. He leads the country in big time throw percentage at 10.7%. And you might be asking yourself, as I was, what technically is a big time throw? And the description of it is essentially what it's called. It's a big time throw. Like it is a throw that has like low expected completion percentage. It's
hmm
typically far down the field. It's just a pass that has a huge impact on the game that is extremely hard to complete. And he is averaging one of those passes every 10 times. He doesn't complete a pass. No, every time he throws a football, one of them is a big time throw. That is insane. The next closest person is Matthew Sluka, funnily
I
enough,
saw that. I was cracking me up. Yeah.
at 9.8%. So Barnett is essentially 1 percentage point better than the next best, which is a large margin. He also has an 11.5 ADOT, and among all quarterbacks in the nation who've thrown at least 50% of their team's dropbacks, is sixth in the nation. 11 and a half yards average depth of target.
Yeah, I mean, you look at some of these stats, it's unbelievable. And you do like the minimum drop backs and you move it up a little bit. And like the 2 best in the country with big time throw percentage are him and Cam Ward, who I believe is the current favorite to win the Heisman Trophy. So if he does keep going, I think there's going to be legitimate buzz, and I think his odds will appear on FanDuel, and I think JMU fans are crazy enough to make a little thing happen about it. But like, it's a little premature right now, but he's moving in the direction of being one of the best players in the country, which is certainly fascinating.
I also want to say that he is second in the nation in drop percentage. So on target passes that have been dropped by the
They're
receivers.
killing him with some of these, man.
He has 14.3% of his passes have been dropped. Second in the nation.
He's throwing some catchable balls that they haven't grabbed, but he also missed a couple deep balls against Ball State that he could have had, and they ended up just getting first downs afterwards anyway. But like, there's going to be a lot of stuff open for him, I think, throughout Sun Belt play if he can deliver on it.
Yeah, Sunbelt play begins this Saturday. Nice little natural segue into previewing ULM. They're not a great team. Offensively, maybe one of the worst in the nation. Defensively, they're all right, but they're not great. They run the ball 38 times per game. They pass it just 17. And General Booty may have been benched, folks. General Booty is booty. It took me all week to think of that.
That's great work. ULM stinks. Like, do we have to do this?
Well, they are
Like,
3-1. They are 3-1.
they've I think in their three FBS games, they've yet to get 300 yards of offense. They beat Troy. They're like 14th in the country or something in turnover margin. That's their thing. JMU leads the country in turnover margin. So they've basically forced turnovers, but they barely outgained UAB in a game they won 32-6. Like that was a scoreboard doesn't match what happened kind of game. Troy is bad. Like Troy is objectively bad. I want to call out our Arkansas State friend Hellraiser. He runs like that Arkansas State blog, who before the UNC game was saying that, some skepticism about JMU and that they had a lot of similarities to Troy with the coaching change and stuff. No, no, that was a poor take. There's no similarities. Like JMU brought in good players and a coach who's won over 100 career games as a head coach. Troy brought in a guy who's like 1-9 as a head coach, and Notre Dame fans wanted to leave as a coordinator. And JMU's roster is way better. There's no similarities there. So when we talk about like ULM and it's like, oh wow, nice win over a crappy Troy team, 13-9. If JMU wants to be a college football playoff contender, like truly considered that, this shouldn't be a game. Like ULM's not good. I think Bryant Vincent's doing a nice job with
Well,
with the coaching job there, but like they suck.
he's doing what he has to do. Like this is a
Yeah.
horrible football team, and like I say they run it 38 times and pass it 17 times a game.
They can't
That's
throw.
because they can't do anything. Like they understand Brian Vincent understands, all right, in order to win a game, we have to dominate time of possession and then hope our
Yes.
defense like does something turnover wise. This is a team that went 2-10 in 2023 after back-to-back seasons of going 4-8, and in 2020 went 0-10. Since 2019, they have won more than 4 games in a single season once, and it was when they went 5-7 in 2019. This team is historically bad. This team isn't good, and Brian Vincent is doing a good job of trying to rebuild them. However, he understands they have to run it 38 times a game to have at least a sliver of a chance to win. This defense is keeping them afloat. They defend the pass so far pretty darn well, 37th in the nation in EPA allowed per pass. Then you flip on over to their offense, which ranks 7th in the nation in starting field position, averaging their own 34 to start because of that includes their FCS game, that includes everything that they've done. However, their offense then can't score the football. They're 127th in the nation in third down success rate. They average 8.12 third down to go, which is 122nd in the nation. They've only gotten 29% of their available yards this season, 130th in the
Mhm.
nation. Mind you, there's 133 teams, and they're 131st in EPA per pass. This team is very bad at football offensively. They didn't realize that, you can play offense in the year 2024.
And like they're fine defensively, and they've got some nice players. I really like their safeties, their defensive line is decent. Offensive line, they've got JMU transfer Carter Miller starting at center, so a little connection there. But they're not good. Like I've seen people be like, this could be a real tough one, going on the road to a sleepy environment. I've seen comparisons to New Hampshire. I don't necessarily disagree that it could be sleepy in that way. New Hampshire had a streak of like 20 consecutive seasons of making the FCF playoffs. It was not only sleepy, you were going to a sleepy environment against an extremely competent FCS team when JMU had those stumbles and other teams had those stumbles in New Hampshire. ULM is bad. So regardless of how sleepy it is, they're not good.
JMU's a 17-point favorite. Are you hammering that?
It's moved already a few points. They opened at like 15 or 15 and a half or something, so it's already moving. I don't know if I'm hammering it because maybe at some point they don't score on every possession. They have some punts, but I'm definitely leaning toward minus 17. Like just like I took it moved a bunch of points last week, and I still took them at minus 21 or whatever against Ball State, and that was over at halftime. Like I felt pretty good. There were no doubts there. ULM, like they're doing some nice things. I do think they have a nice coach, but the UAB win was a lot closer than it looks. UAB is really, really bad. Like Trent Dilfer losing his job bad. I think he had his kid up at a press conference the other day and made a comment about like how he didn't care that they were coming up because it wasn't Alabama. Like, I'm not sure he's even taking the job seriously at this point. He's like, oh, it's just UAB. You can do whatever you want, guys, which is just a weird, unnecessary comment to make. They stink. Troy is in full rebuild. And that game was a battle until the end, 13-9. Like, the only real team they played this year is Texas. They lost 51-3. This would be stunning if it was competitive. I know they're talking about 1-0 every week. I would be stunned.
Yeah, I agree. The only way this game is somehow close is if ULM, tackling has kind of been an issue, although it got a little bit better. It's gotten better a bit as the season has gone on. But the only way I can foresee this game being competitive is ULM gets the ball on their first drive, runs it down JMU's throat, which I highly doubt will happen, and like moves the ball on like a 7-minute drive, scores. Barnett throws a pick on like his first pass, and then ULM like drives the ball down the field again with another just time sucking drive, just running it down their throats. With that being said, JMU has a deep ball merchant as their quarterback. And even if JMU spots them 21 points in the first half, I fully expect JMU to come back and win that game just based off of Alonzo Barnett's play as of late. However, Delvin said this on the To the House podcast, which you can catch every Monday right here in the JMU Sports News Network podcast feed or on the JMU Sports News YouTube channel. It's going to test your theory. Is Barnett a late game guy? Because these two big performances have been a 1 p.m. kick and a noon kick.
It will test my theory, although I think his like nerves, I would assume, have subsided after 13 touchdowns in 2 weeks. I think there's enough like confidence building there that he'll be fine here. And you can't overlook anyone. That's the team, right? They got to be focused. That's the Gardner-Webb game proved. I can now because I'm not suiting up. Like, I don't have to go 1-0 any week, and I wouldn't be able to. Like, talk about how ULM is bad. I would get crushed by that offensive line or any of those players, right? I'm not good at football. But what I'm saying is, like, if JMU plays focus, which Chesney seems to have them doing, and you want to be like a college football playoff team, you can't have a one possession win over Gardner-Webb and a one possession win over ULM and then be like, yeah, we should play Tennessee and Knoxville in the first round. Like, no, you got to show up with some of these games against bad teams, man, and beat them up.
So that's it about the bad ULM Warhawks. Let's hope it's a fun game where JMU hangs up another 60 plus, because if they do that, the college football hype train will be unstoppable up to that point. So, Bennett, it's time for everyone's favorite segment. It's time for this week's News or Snooze, presented by Cinnamon Bear. Next time you're in Harrisonburg, check out Cinnamon Bear Bakery and Deli right across the street from the Atlantic Union Bank Center. Absolutely fantastic food. Go ahead and check them out right across the street from the Atlantic Union Bank Center. Thank you to Cinnamon Bear for sponsoring News or Snooze this football season. You want me to hit play on this, Bennett?
Please do.
Yeah. So both of them to be, so they had like a thing where they're in where we were staying last night. They couldn't stay in their hotel room, right? So they actually went back to their room, and I said to them, "This is like adversity. This is pretty cool for you." And no joke, every moment I've been a part of a program that faces a little bit of adversity, they put themselves in a situation that next day, if they attack it positively, to be able to have a day like this. And I just said to Yamira, I think you're going to end with 2 touchdowns today if you do this right. And that's exactly what we said. And there was one that he missed earlier. There was a drop or something happened earlier that he had a shot at one and couldn't convert it. I said, just relax. You're putting the ball in the end zone twice. And he did exactly that. And then to watch Wayne run, but then to watch all those guys at the end too. Joby run the way he did, KB run the way he did, the old line block. Like it was a really, just a good day to be part of it, where a lot of different people had an opportunity.
The whole News or Snooze is just whatever happened with the Knight brothers in their hotel room is very confusing, very funny, didn't really get reported. But the way Chesney was talking about it was very funny to me, where he's like, they just couldn't stay in their hotel. So they went back to their apartment the day before the game, because if you don't know, the team stays in a hotel the night before the game, even on home games. I think Mike Houston implemented this because it's like similar, or maybe Withers did. I think it was Houston. This is in line with like what power programs do. And so you basically don't have distractions in your dorm or apartment, right? You're focused on a Friday night on the game, and you have a curfew and all that good stuff, and they can enforce it. Anyway, I guess they had to go back to their apartment and the discussion around it was just extremely weird. So Ymir Knight also talked about it in a way that was wildly confusing.
Keep vamping. I'm still finding it.
But it's unusual. It was funny that Chesney was willing to bring it up, but not share any details about it, which had me questioning everything. What happened? But shout out to me, Ymir and Wayne for having their best games of the season. I think Wayne had 63 rushing yards to lead the team, and then Ymir had 2 touchdowns, the first of his career.
Before we hit play on Ymir's thoughts and things on it, I do love Chesney's like went up to Ymir. You're going to score 2 touchdowns today. Like he doesn't have direct say so over who's getting the touchdown looks. Like
Also,
Chesney's like
completely unverifiable, I guess. But I guess Ymir says he did it, so I'll believe him. But it's very funny to be like, and I called it exactly.
But like if you're gonna call 2 touchdowns, why don't you go up to Ymir and be like, you're gonna score 15 today, buddy? Like
very funny, but also a good way to get him amped up for like if you focus, you're gonna score the first 2 touchdowns of your career tomorrow. Is a very good way of being like, please don't go out tonight.
Yeah, it is. He actually did call it. We had an unfortunate situation last night, and I had to end up going back to my apartment to sleep. And coach came up to me like literally 10 minutes before the game. Is like, yo, you know, like when adversity comes, like the ball's gonna find you. You're gonna have a career day, and it ended up happening.
That's what happens in the hotel. And he goes, I don't really want to say, and bursts into laughter. So what
snoozeworthy because they won, but it is absolutely hilarious that all like what?
We had an
also
unfortunate
Chesney
situation. I have so many thoughts in my head, like toilet clogged, bad room condition. There's a million things that I could come up with.
leaky sprinklers, stinky room
above them, too loud.
Room below them, not loud enough.
Yeah. AC doesn't work. Heat doesn't work.
No, there are no covers. So many different ways it could have gone. What a weird thing. And then with Chesney too, where he's just like just stutters and stammers over the beginning of the question with his answer. Oh man, that's a good news or snooze. It's snooze-worthy, but boy, is it a fun one. Just electric news or snooze quotes. Thank you for bringing those to my attention, Bennett. With that, it's time to move.
Information. Let us know.
Yeah, please.
Off the record, we're not gonna do anything with it. It's just I would love to know the mystery of what happened at the Knight Brothers Hotel.
Any other thoughts? You know, leaky faucet, flooding.
It could have been a number of things, but the way they all skirted around it made it very funny. Where Chesney was like, and then Ymir and I was like, I don't want to talk about it. Okay. But everyone else stayed at the same hotel, which is what's fascinating, right? And no one else seemed to have an issue, well, at least reportedly. So, like, what's going on in that one room, man? Haunted?
Ooh. Don't they stay at Hotel Madison? No, they stay at like a hotel up in.
They were in Stanford or Massanutten or something weird, right?
Winchester?
Who knows where they go? Who knows?
The team does. And probably a lot of people around the team.
A lot of people know. If you know where they stay, let us know off the record. We don't want to, get them in trouble, but
all right. So listener question time. Who knows? I mean, there's a lot of people that know actually. This one's from our good friend who's currently in Belgium, far, far away. Daniel Merriman. Who are the Dukes playing in the college football playoff? I'm delusional.
I mean, they got a legit chance to be in the playoff. Who's ranked? Well, it's weird, right? Because you get the first 5 highest ranked conference champions get in the field, and the 4 highest ranked get 1 through 4. So 5 through the 12 seed is going to be gross. Like probably like the best SEC or Big Ten team that doesn't win the
Tennessee
doesn't win the conference.
Tennessee.
So like Tennessee's a realistic one right now. Georgia's ranked 5th.
It would be
could be an Oregon or a Penn State type.
I'm gonna say Texas, Alabama, or Tennessee are the likely ones to face, which are all just disgusting.
Yeah, so it's not going to be easy. I guess on the flip side, if the Big 12 really beats itself up, I'm trying to see where the highest ranked Big 12 team is right now. It looks like it is Iowa State at 16.
So JMU, in theory, if you
In
if you
theory.
if you win out, dominate, and get to around the 15 mark, you could be higher ranked than the Big 12 champion.
And then you would get a bye. I don't think they'll do that with JMU's schedule, but like if UNLV wins out, I think that's not completely out of the question because they've got a higher strength of schedule. But something to consider, like if JMU starts making a legit rise in the polls and has these great metrics, and the Big 12 boom 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 beats itself up,
I was listening
maybe.
to who was it? One of the people they were talking about Colorado, some of the ESPN talking heads, and they were saying they wouldn't be shocked if the Big 12 champion has 3 conference losses.
I mean, I think it's really realistic, right? You look at Iowa State, BYU, Utah lost one they probably shouldn't have lost. They just lost to Arizona, and they still have some tough games left. So yeah, there's I don't know.
All right.
It's quite
Dominic
possible.
Dominic Palumbo. Am I drinking too much purple Kool-Aid if the last few weeks has me feeling like we're going to dog walk the Sun Belt? And is there any logical reason for me to temper my expectations?
I think maybe it was SP Plus, Bill Connolly, or somewhere was saying that they had JMU as an 8.5 point favorite or higher in every game the rest of the way.
Yeah, K Ford ratings too. Our friend came on the podcast last year. If you're not following him, highly recommend. He just released his JMU kind of scorecard up to this point in the season. JMU has a win probability of 69% or higher in all of their remaining games. The likelihood they have an 88% chance. JMU has an 88% chance to win 10 games or more and a 23% chance to go undefeated.
I think ULM, Southern Miss, Georgia State should all be blowouts. And that would get you already to 7 wins. And then you got 5 that maybe won't necessarily be blowouts. But like if App State doesn't fix some stuff, if Marshall doesn't show more life, you're looking at like Charles Huff on the way out last game of the season kind of stuff. There is a chance that they dog walk the Sun Belt.
I'm the only game I am nervous for is the Georgia Southern game, and that is
Yeah.
purely because we've seen some weird things happen in Statesboro.
It's also a
And
mini buy.
mini buy and Clay Helton, his offensive just mind paired up going up against like a defense that has been allowing yards. That could be a little scary. But other than that, that's a 69% win probability according to K Ford ratings as it stands now on October 2nd. And that that's the most likely game they could lose. And it's still a 69% chance of winning. That's insane. So no, Dom, there's no reason for you to temper your expectations. Lean into it. Drink
Yeah.
more purple Kool-Aid.
It's more fun that way.
Chris at HD Chris JMU. What teams do you view? This is a few questions. I'll read them all and then we'll go one by one. What teams do you view as JMU's biggest challenges the rest of the season? Will we ever see Taji Hudson in a meaningful role? Where in the world is Iowa Day? And do you think he's actually done for the season? Question 1, who do you think is JMU's biggest challenge the rest of the season?
I think we're probably in agreement with Georgia Southern there.
No, Boise State and UNLV.
That is fair because they're going to need some help there to get into the playoff.
I think those are the biggest challenges if JMU wants to make the college football playoff, and there's nothing they can do about it. That's the funniest part.
I guess fortunately they'll play each other at least once, Boise State and UNLV.
Yes.
Quite possible they play twice.
More likely they play twice, and you gotta hope that like they split that series.
Yeah.
Will we ever see Taji or UNLV somehow like drops a game or two, which I don't think is
That could.
outside of the realm of possibility.
They've got Syracuse this weekend.
Yeah.
So.
I think Boise's the one that I'm more worried about because I think one loss Boise makes it in over an undefeated JMU. I think Liberty, on a complete side note, F Liberty. But I think Liberty ruined it for JMU this year with getting blown out the way they did last year against Oregon after going undefeated with a cupcake soft schedule. I think that's going to make the committee for years forward look at strength of schedule specifically for group of 5 teams hard. And
Yeah.
because of like if Liberty was competitive in that game, I think an undefeated JMU makes it in over a 1-loss Boise without a doubt. However, because of what happened last year, I think a 1-loss Boise makes it in over an undefeated JMU.
Yeah. UNC win helps. I also think like narrative, as much as the committee like claims that doesn't play a part, having like the best running back in the country for Boise, like legit
Yes.
Heisman contender helps the case. But at the same time,
JMU is the best quarterback in the country. You're right. So I mean that could help for the Dukes.
no, I think
Oh,
like the Genty thing, if he does get dinged at the end of the year, because he's carrying the ball a lot, running back's a position where you can get hurt maybe more easily than others. That is an interesting one to keep an eye on because the committee, as we saw last year at Florida State, they're going to look at injuries. So if they got to keep him healthy, because if he goes down, I think Boise State, even with one loss, the committee would view them so much differently because of one player. Where I think JMU has enough depth that maybe if Barnett goes down, but Dylan Morris is a P5 guy who can come in and maybe step up and still get him in.
yeah. Number 2, will we ever see Tajee Hudson in a meaningful role? Tajee Hudson missed the first 2 games of the season, came back and played in a very limited role against UNC, 1 target, no catch. Did play against Ball State, but was not targeted at all. Still listed as a starting wide receiver on the most latest 2 Deep that came out earlier today. We're recording on October 2nd. However, it seems like the likes of Cam Ross, Omarion Dollison, Ymir Knight, Taylor Thompson, and Logan Kyle have all usurped Tajee Hudson in terms of target share.
I think give him a little more time. He still has some valuable assets in terms of his size and athleticism. So I could see him taking on a meaningful role this year for sure.
Where in the world is Iowa Dei? Do you think he's done for the season? You want to say your hot take?
Yeah, my hot take. So if you can play up to 4 games in redshirt, he's not redshirted to this point in his career. He played in 21, 22, and 23. I kind of think there's a possibility that depending on the severity of the injury, because there hasn't been a lot of information on that lower body, maybe he sits out the rest of the year in red shirts and tries to come back next year. Because I do think he has NFL aspirations. And if he kind of limps through the rest of the year, that would be tough for him. So I think that's probably going to be a conversation depending on how bad the injury is. If he can come back healthy in the next like couple of weeks, I think he might want to do that because it's a team that has a legit chance to play in the playoff. But if not, I wouldn't be shocked if he tries to like focus on his future. And they're so deep at running back with Petaway, Purdy, Mallory, Wayne Knight's looking good. They still go 4 deep at the position with 4 really good players, and then they've got like Kamarion Baldwin, who's a talented youngster. So I don't think they would necessarily like be dead without Io. Clearly, they scored 133 points the last 2 weeks without him. So I kind of think he might redshirt just based on the lack of information we have.
I think that's a good point. Io got hurt early against Gardner-Webb, did not play the rest of the game. It was stated that this is an injury he's dealt with before and he's
Yeah.
played through before. We didn't know that there was any injury around Iowa Dei coming into the season, but that could be a reason why one of the best group of 5 running back transfers ended up at another group of 5 school. Maybe I'm looking way too far into that. But then he did suit up and tried to go against UNC, did not go.
Yeah.
I don't know if he did against Ball State. I was not locked to my phone for Twitter pregame to see if he had
I
tried
can't
to give it
remember
a
if
go.
he dressed, but it definitely didn't play any snaps.
Didn't play any snaps. He was dressed, but then wasn't dressed for UNC, right?
Something like that. I think he tried to give it a go and then was like visibly frustrated or something that he wasn't quite where he
So,
wanted to be.
and it could be one of those injuries that, you know, for a lot of lower body injuries, you never get like the doctor's like, well, you can go, but now it's like a mental
Right.
thing. So it could just be that where like maybe it's a hammy and he doesn't trust it on a cut, or it's, you know, something where the doctor's like, you're clear, you're good to go, but now at this point it's like, can you do it? And a lot of lower body injuries are that where there's no like bone damage. Here I am putting on my doctor cap, but you know.
Yeah, so interesting to monitor because I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility that he redshirts. And then it looks like, and nobody's asked this, but like Tyshawn Wyatt's got to be a medical redshirt, right?
I mean, the last update we had for Wyatt was after Gardner-Webb going into the bye week, like going into the bye week. So
Yeah.
3 weeks ago. And it was said that he's coming back well, but he's still not cleared. So I would be shocked if we saw Tyshawn Wyatt this season. But look, I've been shocked multiple times.
We're so used to being shocked.
Alonzo Barnett has won a QB competition. I did not give him a chance in twice, and now he's a Heisman candidate in my mind. So,
That's right. That's right.
uh, Roger Smith, 13. What concerns are there with JMU volleyball on a 4-match losing streak?
This is a good question. They do not seem like the same juggernaut that they have been in the past. So concerns in terms of like this year, yeah, probably. I don't think they're going to win the Sun Belt or make the NCAA tournament. Long-term concerns, not really. Like Steinbrecker's been so good there this year, or sorry, her whole career. But yeah, it seems like maybe a down year, which is a little bit, I guess, disappointing.
Yeah, you graduate some players. You don't have the necessary steps forward from some of the younger guys you were expecting. Or maybe you just scheduled a really tough the overall schedule. The Sun Belt's a better conference in the CAA, I think, as well. So it just adds some extra layers to it. It's one of the fun things about the conference realignment that JMU has undergone. It impacts sports past football. We've seen it now with baseball, softball, volleyball now. But Steinbrecker's great. They'll be back next year. And it's not like they're done now. Like there's still a lot of
Right.
conference play left, and they can easily turn a corner. Caleb David, Arch Manning threw 2 interceptions against ULM. Will AB3 be over or under Arch's interception total?
Hmm.
I'd saying under,
I think under two, based on the fact that he hasn't had a two interception game all season.
and he's taken care of the football extremely well. Where like only like one of the interceptions was not even his fault.
They've also schemed some guys up where like he's thrown some into tight windows. Like the first Jameer Knight touchdown was through like four defenders.
Whew.
It's a little wild. But outside of that, like there's a lot of like, oh, that dude's wide open and he makes the throw.
Yeah. So I'm going under. I think you're going under. Jeff
Yeah.
Bourne's burner. Shout out Jeff Bourne's burner. Glad it's still kicking, even though he's retired. Any thoughts on how long Chesney stays? Jeff, you hired him. I know it's really early and sucks to think about, but he's got to be in consideration for P5 jobs this upcoming carousel.
Probably. Probably.
He was in the mix for Syracuse's job, right?
Yeah, I think he was kind of in the mix there, but they went out and got like a
Georgia
Power
running back
Five
coach.
recruiter. Yeah. I guess the thing that's going for JMU and keeping him is that, well, I don't know if it's going for him, but like he's not the first guy to do this. He walked into a situation that Signetti had rolling. Like culture wise, I think the reason why people might like him, he turned over the roster and they're still playing really well. And Signetti is man is cooking in Bloomington. Like I don't like if you win at JMU, you can go to another spot clearly and win again. So I don't know. I don't know that there's and we said this like when they hired Chesney that I thought it might only be a year or two, and nothing he's done has changed that for me. I really do not think it will be long until he's elsewhere.
I think 2 years is the most likely time for Chesney. I will say Signetti, if he can continue this up, is doing a very good job of bucking the trend of failed JMU coaches. Everett Withers went on to Texas State, did not find success. Mike Houston seemingly avoids being
I'll put
fired
him
every
I'll
year.
put him in the middle. He's been okay there. He hasn't been like horrible.
He hasn't been what he was at JMU.
No, but he was up a level. They're okay. But yeah, he's hot seat more than most.
ECU fans hate him. They want him fired every year, and every year he does not get fired. That's all I'm
That's
saying.
fair.
But the Signetti's done a good job now, 5-0, bucking that trend of like I can make the jump from the Sun Belt to the Big Ten and dominate these teams. We can go to the Rose Bowl and play in Rose Bowl or parking lot and beat them. It will be interesting to see how this season unfolds the rest of the way. A tough game on October 18th against Nebraska, a game I will be at. I'm very excited for.
Oh, are you going to that one?
Yeah, me and Tim
That's
are
hilarious.
headed out there. I'm
Is that a
pumped.
Friday?
October 18th. No, it's a Saturday.
No, that's not a Saturday.
My bad. October 19th.
Oh, okay. I was like, that's
Whenever that game
crazy.
is. Whenever that game is. But th have you looked at Indiana's schedule recently?
Yeah, I think they're gonna go 11-1.
You think that end of their season is tough?
Which one? They're gonna be favored against Michigan, baby.
You think they're gonna be favored against Michigan?
Michigan sucks.
Michigan's ranked 10th still, though.
Yeah, they're not the 10th best team in the country. That's trash.
All
They
right.
beat Minnesota by 3. They beat USC by 3 in a
Look,
game they shouldn't have won. Arkansas State by 10. Texas beat them by
okay,
20.
okay, I get it. I get it. I get it. But like
Indiana's going to beat Michigan.
Indiana's schedule after this Northwestern game, it's tough. It's 3-3, I think, is a
Is
good
it?
finish. Nebraska's
No,
good.
no, no, no.
Are you
No.
bought in on Indiana hype?
Northwestern's terrible.
Yeah,
They just
yeah, yeah.
lost to Washington
Yeah.
20.
I'm not
Yeah.
arguing that. They then have
Okay,
6
okay.
more games after that.
Okay, so you're saying the last 6. Okay, okay, okay. Nebraska at home after a bye week. Who are you cheering for in that game?
Nebraska. Actually, I think I'm gonna wear JMU stuff.
That's sick. You're going to Bloomington. Yeah, that would be sick. That would actually be that would be sick. You have to do that. That okay, so that game or the Michigan game is going to get game day also for Bloomington. I've done a lot of research into this. Like they're getting college game day for one of those games.
Okay.
Um, so they've got that Washington's not good. That game's at home. They're winning. They're beating Nebraska. They're beating Washington. They're starting 8-0. Michigan State's not that good. They're winning that one. That's 9-0. They're beating Michigan 10-0. Ohio State game's going to go down to the wire. Maybe they get 11-0, and they're going to blow Purdue out. Worst case scenario is 11-1 right now. They're unreal.
All right. On that note, I think Chesney stays 2 years. Next one is Sluka the starting quarterback next year, assuming Barnett transfers.
Ooh, a lot to break down there. I also think on the Chesney thing, part of the reason he is enticing, and this is like very sick and twisted, but part of the reason he's enticing is because you can pull a Signetti where you take your good players, like the idea of bringing Alonzo Barnett and George Pettaway to a Power Five with Chesney would intrigue athletic directors, I think. Anyway, Sluka being the starter would depend entirely on one, Barnett actually transferring. Collective's going to have to put in work this offseason. And then if Chesney stays, like I don't think a new coach is bringing in Sluka because his passing is not all there. And I don't even know if Chesney's going to bring in Sluka.
Hot take. I don't think Sluka is sniffing JMU next season. Like if Barnett
Yeah.
leaves, if Barnett stays, no matter what, like I do not think there is a scenario where Sluka comes to JMU next year.
I don't think he could be the starting quarterback the way they're playing.
I think Dean Kennedy has been now shown what it's like to have an offense where a quarterback can efficiently pass. And I don't think there's going back to a Sluka QB power type.
The crazy part of him though is his like touchdown to interception ratio is so good, but his completion percentage is going to be like 50%.
Exactly.
Like he's not going to turn it over, but he's also not going to he's going to throw a lot of incompletions.
So I don't think there's any chance Sluka is on JMU's QB depth chart next year, unless he just wants to come and have fun for like a season and not really like I think there's more likelihood that JC Evans starts as a quarterback next year than Matthew Sluka for JMU. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to envision it. But I mean, if Barnett leaves, they're absolutely bringing in a transfer
To battle
or
with JC
two
Evans, yeah.
or two. But yeah,
And last but certainly not least, depressed Duke Doc. This is maybe the greatest question ever.
it was.
How do you think that name game after the UNC game felt? That pool should be reserved until January. Shoot,
Yeah,
they could go ice skating.
man, yeah, that's actually a great question. What if they make the college football playoff? So I think the conference championship would be like December 7th. And then the first round is like the 20th or the 21st. So you essentially have 2 weeks. So it's like a bye basically. What kind of team bonding do you think they're doing over the bye?
I think they're all going camping.
Camping in December?
Yeah, then they all get hypothermia and they all can't play in the game and lose.
That'd be kind of sweet. Yeah, I can't wait to see what they do because if they do, there's going to be a lot of that. I also think like if they make the playoff and win a playoff game, they need to create a celebration, or they could even do this in the Sun Belt Championship. That's like whoever catches the touchdown, the rest of the offense runs down and lines up. They pick on somebody, and the guy has to go through and name them, like pointing. So it's like a real inside baseball, but the fans will know that they're playing the name game as a touchdown celebration. So I'm going to keep floating that.
I don't hate that. Anything else you got to add?
No.
All right, for Bennett Conlin. Oh, couple things actually. JMU men's soccer is
Good.
very good. Number 10 in the latest poll. They didn't have any movement, but still number 10 in the nation. JMU women's soccer picks up a very good win, 3-2 over ODU. That's an ODU squad that has won back-to-back conference titles, and has played pretty good defense this season. So to put up 3 goals on them is pretty impressive. Ginny Lackey was named to the Top Drawer Soccer National Team of the Week. She was also the Sun Belt Offensive Player of the Week. And the Dukes are performing at a very high level out on the pitch. Alice Roper was on the National Field Hockey Coaches Association, the NFHCA, was named the Offensive Player of the Week as well. But keep it locked. The other footballs are also performing at an extremely high level. So for Bennett Conlin, I'm Jack Fitzpatrick. Thank you so much for tuning into the JMU Sports News podcast presented by Bet Online. We'll talk to you guys next week. In the meantime, keep it locked to our Twitters at JMU Sports News. And you can find us on YouTube, JMU Sports News there. And you can subscribe to the JMU Sports News Network right here, wherever you're listening to your podcast. Never miss an episode. We drop every middle of the week, and To the House drops every Monday night.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.